Not the personal image. The Queen is no doubt proud of many things, especially her family. What she doesn't seem to be is vain, even though her image is inescapable.
When she was born in 1926, films were still silent, as it were, and we now live in a world where there's 24-hour news, we live in a world of IT, of Facebook, of Twitter, all of which means that she is the most remorselessly represented figure probably ever to have lived in human history. It is an amazing thought.
After the early years of her reign, the 1960s emerged as a more questioning and less deferential decade. With it came some satirical mockery, pressure over royal funding, and a new, tougher media atmosphere.
Media is a professional intruder. It wouldn't work if it did. That's what it's doing all the time. So you can't complain about it.
The monarchy's response to the anti-establishment 1960s and the greater media curiosity was to agree to let some light in with an observational documentary called Royal Family.
Yeah. What do you have? Molly. Ice cream. Eat ice cream. This is what he really would like. Yes, you always go straight for the ice cream. Yes.
For 75 days, the crew filmed some of the ritual and pomp of the ceremonial year, but were also allowed to capture the royals at home.
We didn't invite them into the bathroom. Well, I mean, people have judgment. They don't belong to a secret society. I mean, I can see why people shouldn't know what's going on. Much better that they should know than speculate.
He did have some very strange habits, your father. I remember when I used to come up to Royal Lodge, I asked when I arrived on, I said, where's the king? And they said, oh, he's in the garden. And I went out and there's nothing to be seen except a lot of terribly rude words and language coming out of a rhododendron bush. So I eventually found him there hacking away, wearing a bearskin cap. Which was, he was getting ready.
When it was first shown in 1969, it became the most watched documentary in British television history, with 2/3 of the population watching.
Oh!
A triumph! Except that almost at once there were second thoughts.
Oh.
Why did that fall?
I'm sorry, it's all right.
Were parts of it a little embarrassing? Too much? Since the year of its release, the full version has never been broadcast again.
Very little happening to them.
Once you're there at the royal barbecue and you see the sausages sizzling, there's an extra layer of penetration and expectation that's created for the future. And the problem with all these things is not the film that gets made with careful supervision, but what happens next. And we were all greedy in the media. We want to take it a stage further.
The film Royal Family that I don't remember a great deal about, which was done when I was only 8, 9. And I mean, that was the moment when the sort of the veil was lifted to a certain extent, and the interactivity, and it's just got greater and greater and greater.
Come around this side.
The 1970s was a relatively easy decade for the Queen's family, with Prince Charles as a bachelor in his naval uniform or careering around on polo ponies, Princess Anne taking part in the 1976 Olympics. Relatively innocent times. But for Britain, these were hard times. Industrial strife, inflation, angst about national decline. So that when the Queen's Silver Jubilee arrived in 1977, there was a certain amount of uneasiness. Many socialists argued the celebrations would be a waste of public money. Some handed out Roll on the Red Republic badges, and punk rockers sang God Save the Queen, but not in a good way. A staggering 750 million people around the world tuned in to watch the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer in 1981. But as their marriage slowly broke down, leading to divorce in 1992, the headlines gathered pace, and both Princess Diana and Prince Charles turned to journalists to tell their side of the story. But it was the absence of words which created the biggest media storm of the Queen's reign. when in 1997, on the sudden death of Princess Diana in a Paris car crash, the Queen stayed at her castle in Scotland for another 4 days.
For the Queen, I think it was a very difficult thing for her to balance, because her first priority was to look after her grandchildren and make sure that they were properly cared for and helped through this period of grieving, when there was all this huge furore going on around. But at the same time, obviously, for the country, because Diana was revered and adored, there was a need for her to be there with the country.
I remember being in my room in Buckingham Palace and the crowd lining Birdcage Walk, waiting for her car to come back down. And there was a very quiet and quite threatening atmosphere.
Sort of almost a mutinous feeling.
Almost a mutinous feeling. And the moment the car appeared, people started to clap. And the whole atmosphere changed. And the very fact of just responding and returning to the palace and becoming the public figure again, not the private, grieving family, sort of did it.
She took this one step further, using the media herself to talk to the nation.
What I say to you now, as your queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness.
What she was saying to the country was, look, you have to understand, this is my family, and I'm approaching this as a grandmother, but I acknowledge my duty to you as queen. And it was interesting when she realized that that's what she had to do, she did it. And by the way, those words in that speech were her own.
It was a terrible time for the Queen, as for the rest of the royal family. And as the media has kept changing, so has the monarchy. These days, the British monarchy has a Facebook page, a royal channel on YouTube, and a Twitter page, though no tweets from the Queen herself. Doesn't seem quite right or likely. Is she in touch with what's going on in your generation much, do you think? She's on Facebook. I mean, certainly Buckingham Palace is using some of the social networking sites.
Well, I think that's the nature of the world today, that you have to be in touch to a certain extent. But I think the wonderful thing about the Queen is that she's timeless. She's in touch with every generation just instinctively, because she is this matriarch of society now.
Reading and responding to the British public mood is a daily art. But the mood in the Queen's other realms is crucial too. Jamaica now wants to end the royal connection, while there are republican movements in countries such as Australia, Canada and New Zealand. As with the changing media at home, the Queen has had to cope with some tricky challenges.
Gliding through Sydney Heads, the sleek white liner Gothic brings Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh to the threshold of Australia. Thousands line the greatest of...
In 1954, she arrived, newly crowned, in Australia, where she was an unknown quantity. This was the first visit of a reigning monarch. She hadn't faced a tour on this scale before. So how would she cope, and how would they react? It's reckoned that 3/4 of the adult population turned out to cheer.
About half of the 3 million people who cheered the royal couple slept on the pavements all night for a glimpse of this historic scene.
The Queen is Queen of Australia only because in 1770 a bold explorer, Captain Cook, was bouncing along the coast and, obeying orders, planted a flag and said, on behalf of George III, we'll have this. Now, Australia has long been an independent and very powerful country, full of people from all around the world, many of whom have absolutely no connection to Britain. Even in modern planes, it's an 18-hour flight from London to here. Put like that, it seems bizarre that the Queen reigns here.
In 1986, the Australia Act formally severed any rights of the United Kingdom to interfere in Australian politics, and references to the Queen were removed from the country's oath of allegiance. In 1999, however, a hard-fought referendum came down narrowly in favour of monarchy. Today, members of the Australian Republican movement are still calling for radical change.
We think that we've outlived the role that a British Queen can play in Australia, that in the time of empire and then in more traditional days of monarchy, that to have a British monarch as our head of state and to have her representative, the Governor-General, as the de facto head of state was probably a system that's worked well enough in the past, but the time to move on has come.
So, in October 2011, how might the Queen be received on her 16th visit to Australia? The press is full of questions, asking whether this is the last time she'll visit. She certainly puts in the legwork, taking in Canberra, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth, and wherever she goes, the mood on the streets is sunny. She finds plenty of the old British spirit at events such as this garden party.
You've got some nice music, you've got the canapes and the little cakes. It's a little bit like Buckingham Palace. Well, only a little bit. Buckingham Palace, they offer you a very nice cup of tea. Here, we are in Australia, and you get something rather more interesting, unless you're working.
There's no doubt that the visit of a traditionalist octogenarian monarch to this sun-baked continent will have its odd moments. The Queen has kept her dignity travelling in many royal vehicles. A golf buggy, complete with equerry and royal crest, something else. In the past, the Queen has explained away her sterner expressions by saying she's just trying not to giggle. This may be one of those moments.